September 30 is a federal statutory holiday, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which also coincides with Orange Shirt Day. Calgary is marking this event with an Orange Shirt Day ceremony on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation at the Fort Calgary. Fort Calgary is located where the Bow River meets the Elbow River. The ground that Fort Calgary is located on has been called coincides by the Blackfoot, Wichipa by the Nakota, Gutisti by Tsuut'ina, and Otoquini by the Métis. This place was also the birthplace of Calgary, but has been referred to by those names for much longer than Calgary has been in existence. Hi, I'm Lanre Ajayi, and I'm reaching you now on channel 197.3.1 DT on people, places, and events. This is My City Speaks to Me, the Calgary edition. Although Alberta is not recognizing it as a provincial holiday, the city of Calgary has declared September 30th as a holiday for all city employees from this year onwards. There will be orange ribbon decals on all City of Calgary fleet vehicles, and the city will be illuminating the following buildings and structures in orange in the honor of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. They are Art Commons, Calgary Tower, the Glenbow Museum, Historic City Hall, Olympic Plaza, Reconciliation Bridge, Southern Alberta Jubilee Auditorium, and the Telos Park Science Center. Today's ceremony includes remarks from Mayor Naheed Nenshi, a Siksika elder, and an Indigenous Canadian Army veteran, leaders from the city and experts on generational trauma, and members of the city's Indigenous Relations Office. Drumming and dancing performances will close the event of today. In the words of Canada's first Indigenous Governor General, Our Excellency, the Right Honorable Mary May Simon, reconciliation is a way of life, continuous with no end date. It is learning from our lived experiences and understanding one another. It is creating the necessary space for us to heal. It is planting seeds of hope and respect so that our garden blooms for our children. National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is a day to reflect on the impact of residential schools, honor survivors of residential schools, the families, the communities, and all those who never made it back home, and learn more about the perspective of Indigenous peoples of this great land of Canada. We'll be right back.
Thank you everybody for being here with us today. It's my honor. My name is Harold Horsfall. I'm an issue strategist with the City of Calgary's Indigenous Relations Office, and I'll be your MC today. So before we begin, I got to do a little bit of housekeeping. We are still in the midst of a pandemic and we are still on lockdown. So social distancing is really critical. So please make sure that everybody is social distancing. Make sure to keep your distance, keep your masks on whenever possible, sanitize often, and if you can, avoid shaking hands or hugging, and especially avoid kissing, please. So I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered today here at Mohkinstis, Winchispa Oyade, Gudsitse, or a Tuscany, and they all mean elbow. So everybody tap your elbow and say that, and acknowledge that we're here on this traditional Treaty 7 territory and the homeland of the historic Northwest Métis. So, and then the confluence site here is very significant to many of the nations that call this place home. So all those generations and generations of ancestors of people that were here before us, let's pray that they're here with us today. So thank you for gathering with us here today under our banner. You'll see this banner behind me. And the name of the banner is the Incomplete List. The banner has all of the 2,800 plus known names of children that didn't make it home. A relative of mine, Alexander James Horsfall, his name is on there. Same with a number of people from where I'm originally from, in Fort Capel, just northeast of Regina in Saskatchewan. The list isn't to scale. We had to make a trade-off between legibility to be able to read the names, but you'll see that it's incomplete. And out of the children that didn't make it home, there's still room for them on there. And so now we will observe a moment of silence for all of our relatives, all of the children who did not make it home from residential school. Everybody please stand, and Jen, let me know when we're good. Okay, thank you. We will observe a minute of silence now. Okay, so thank you for coming again, everyone. And I would like to invite our elder, Siksika elder and war veteran, Mixicum, or Agar, or Clarence Wolflag, to come up and to perform a smudge and to open this event in a good way.
Okay. That's good. Welcome everybody. You know, I was asking this fireman over here. You're supposed to make fires, you're supposed to put out fires. But this is a special fire, so I'll forgive you. Before I say the prayer, I just want to say it's quite a moment for myself being a survivor. So I'm going to pray for all of you, your families. I'm going to pray for those that are not with us, especially the survivors, especially the children that are being found in grave sites across this country, and also the parents and all the relatives and the ancestors. They also did not live to see this day. It gives me courage through my prayers to continue to look at the positives of how we can work together as one people on one Mother Earth. That's what spiritual leaders look at. No boundaries, no divisions. That's why when we smudge, we bring everybody under the same Mother Earth. So with that, I thank the ladies for the songs. Beautiful song. Ayo späädä pio pääki pitääki. Aukino katsomat nohkuista koi kaaki. Aamaksi nohkuspa nohpimmukään nohtaa. Outi itse katsomaani kaatse muihkaan. Aukin nissä kouseksi itskin aieksi itse naappia. Ainakin jahko innemaani. Aukin nohtouts pommokin aakitatse muihkaan. No ainakin kitauksua ja tsihkoannaan. Auki kainaus kaapi pikani. Auki no koussin ainakin taappiiksi. Sahsiua, sahsiukitakin. Ainakin niitä saapii, kun no katsotaan oppii. Auki itse päädäpi tohanstiksen stahpina nohksista koi. Aamaukaa, aapastu tsiipestys. Auki nakaa vatsepi on uukkamohkinstas. Annetaan sitä vatsepi utsiipinais kohsik. Auki ahkanaa sukaapio. Nohkotas ainakin kanautu, ahksemiska tuomani kimma piipitsin. Ispoms täältä piisin. Auki kanaa sukaapio, ahpoattuu ja itse päätä piu. Annikin tämä tuussa, mä näen ahkitaa pääppukäyvän tauhsinnaan. Anna kahkuun vaikka puukaa vakaakin taamautkaju. Aukenna kiissassa puukaa tuomat sitä toupihpää vaakii. Aukenna kanaattoi iitä piinokumaan sitä vaikka mukkina rahka aikaakin mahpinnaan. Rahka vaikka iitsipinäni päätä piuksinnaan. Maalakon ovaitsen, niin kammanaka niitä sitä piuak. Anne nohtuut, sihpinäänä sahkummiitapi. Auki naattoussi. Kääkumaan sitä en nohpinnaakaan ääkistikos, koko mikin sommaakin. Ypesua, mahti ypesua. Aukiisti päätä piu, panna jokaisen katsomaan. Kanaa sukaa, pinohsihkomanakin takupio. Ainakaan matkut tuuttuu. Auki nohsihka topina naa piuutsen. Nesta vatsemaan. Kaammotaani o kähsipäältä piukseni.
Thank you, Clarence. Let's give him a round of applause for that. Thank you. So now, I would like to invite up Chief Ken Uzalak from the Calgary Fire Department for your words and blessing, and to explain a little bit what this aerial salute is behind us. Come on up, Ken.
Thank you, Elder Clarence Wolflake, for your blessing. Again, I'm Deputy Chief Ken Uzalak with the Calgary Fire Department, and I'm representing all of my colleagues, women and men who serve in the Calgary Fire Department. This day of remembrance for the more than 150,000 Indigenous children who were forced into Indian residential schools, many that perished there and did not make it home. We as a city remember the children, families, and communities that were forever changed by their collective experiences while at residential school, along with the legacy that it has left behind. Behind me, you can see 2 fire trucks set up in an aerial salute. The symbology of this salute in the fire service for me came from when I marched in a procession with thousands of firefighters in New York 1 year after the 9/11 terrorism attacks. That march started and ended with an aerial salute as a commitment to those 343 firefighters and thousands of others that lost their lives, that we would not forget what happened to them and that we will always remember them. Today, that flag between the trucks includes the name of each child that was lost in a residential school. The space on the side represents the hundreds of names of lost children that we do not know. This aerial salute has a long history of representing respect, honor, and remembrance of lives lost. That is why I'm honored to be here today to raise this salute on behalf of the Calgary Fire Department in remembrance of the children who did not come home and those that still live with the trauma of what happened. We will not forget what happened, and we will remember you. Orange Shirt Day is important to commemorate because it reminds us all that we have a responsibility to honor these children and to educate ourselves about the history of residential schools in our country. The elders teach us that by educating our youth about the mistakes of our past, they may never be repeated. I hope and ask that we can all reflect on this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Uzalak. You and the Calgary Fire Department have been strong supporters in advancing truth and reconciliation and have been a part of the city's involvement with Orange Shirt Day since 2018. So I'd like to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude for all the support that you've given to this event and for your continued support in advancing the TRC calls to action. And now, I would like to welcome His Worship, Mayor Nahed Nenshi, to share his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Harold. Amba wastich. Dada destada. Size etia. Oki nitsqua. Nitsuanok abesto cheapistus. Tansi. Greetings to all my relations. To my Sutina family, I am known as Etia, always ready, which I hasten to remind everybody does not mean always on time. Because Indian time, same. To my Blackfoot brothers and sisters, I am known as Abesto Cheapstis. And in typical Sikasitapi fashion and their sense of humor, Elder Pete standing alone gave me a name I cannot pronounce. And poor Clarence gets nervous every time I try to say it. It means clan leader, He who moves camp and the others follow. Getting those two names were among the most important honors of my life because they reminded me of our responsibility to one another. Before I forget, I should begin with some thank yous. So thank you to my colleagues at the City of Calgary, to Harold, our host today, and his colleagues at the Indigenous Relations Office, and to all of the others, including our City Manager, David Duckworth, and the 15,000 friends that I get to go to work with every single day for their support of today's event. Oh, and thank you to my Kookums at the Circle of Wisdom for this outstanding shirt, which they gifted me as a surprise this morning, and I am so thrilled to have. I have many stories that I want to share in that Indigenous tradition. I'll start with a story 6 or 7 years ago, when I had the opportunity to get up very early in the morning and take the bus to Edmonton. If you're wondering about the glamorous life of a mayor, it involves taking the bus to Edmonton. I was carrying a very awkward package, and I kept trying to shift around in my seat to make sure that I didn't damage it. And when I got to Edmonton, I took that awkward package and I walked from the bus station to the convention center. That was the opportunity that I had to bear honorary witness to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And the awkward package I was carrying was the City of Calgary's first gesture of reconciliation. And it was that for the first time ever, the Mayor of Calgary, on behalf of the citizens of Calgary, proclaimed a year for the city to focus on one thing. And that, of course, was the year of reconciliation. Since then, we've had the report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We have had a number of moves forward as we think about reconciliation. Then, of course, this spring. This spring, with the horrifying discovery of 215 children's remains in Kamloops and further discoveries across the country, were moments of real definition of us as a country. And I have to tell you something. My first reaction when I saw people turn their social media avatars orange, when I saw people using hashtag #EveryChildMatters, my first reaction was hard. It was a hard reaction. And it was, why now? Why so late? How could you not have known? Have you not listened to the survivors and to the elders and to the knowledge keepers? How could you not have known? But then I realized, in talking to others and in thinking about my own role in all of this, that that was much too hard. Because all those hearts across this country that were broken this spring and summer are now open. Broken hearts are open hearts. And it is our job to fill those open hearts with truth and with commitment to the reconciliation that we face. As Harold reminded us, we're standing here on very ancient land. We're standing here on land where since time immemorial people have come. They've come to this place that my Nitsitapi brethren call Mokinstis, the elbow, the place where two rivers come together. They were drawn here by the water and by the endless blue sky. The water and the sky gave life, and people came here to hunt and fish and trade, to live and love and dream and dance and fight sometimes, but ultimately to engage in that very real act of building community. This morning I had the opportunity to speak at a virtual event at the United Nations General Assembly with people from all over the world. And I started by talking about Mokinstis. I started by talking about the first peoples of this land. And I said, you know, in the last couple of years, it has been uncommon to start any meeting, any wedding, any funeral without a land acknowledgement. And it feels right. It feels like a real change we made in our community. But too often, those acknowledgements sound like dusty relics of the past, that we're talking about what used to be. When in fact, those acknowledgements are about who we are. They're about who we come from And most important, they're about who we aspire to be. And that's what we need to continue to do every day. Because as you've heard, there is no reconciliation without truth. And the truth is that in this country, we've accomplished a lot of great things. You'll never find a prouder Canadian than me talking about the wonderful things we've done. We've also done a lot of horrible things. We've done a lot of unspeakable things. And I shouldn't say unspeakable, because truth means speaking those things. Truth means telling ourselves the true stories of where we come from. And today is not a day for politics, but I'll be political for one moment. That day when I made that gesture of reconciliation, the government of Alberta at the time also made a gesture of reconciliation. Theirs was much more meaningful than mine. And their gesture of reconciliation was that every child in every grade in school in Alberta will always learn about residential schools and will always learn about reconciliation. Don't let them break that promise. We must fight to ensure that every child knows the truth, that every adult knows the truth, that every one of us knows the truth in order for us to be able to move forward. So today is a day of laments. Today is a day of mourning. And I'm reminded that earlier this week, I had the opportunity to attend a day of lament at Grace Presbyterian Church. Grace Presbyterian Church, just before Canada Day, was one of the churches that was vandalized with red paint on their doors. And that led to a real moment of crisis for the church. And Pastor Jake wrote some of the most beautiful words I've ever seen when he talked about why the church decided to keep the red paint up on their front door, to remind people of our own history, but also to help people reconcile ourselves to true action. And they called it a day of lament and a day of action. And that's really what I encourage all of you to do today. We lament those children that never came home. Not 215, but thousands and thousands of children who never had the opportunity to live those lives. We lament the stolen language and the stolen past of the survivors. We lament the intergenerational trauma that haunts people to this day. But our lament is a powerful one. It's not to allow ourselves to wallow in sadness, it's to commit ourselves to action. Earlier this summer, Elder Casey Eaglespeaker told me to stop using the word reconciliation and start using the word reconciliation. And I think that's right. I think that feels right today. So I want to suggest to everyone watching today some things you can do. Read White Goose Flying. White Goose Flying is the City of Calgary strategy that we have committed to implement the recommendations of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission on this land at this junction of these two rivers, at this confluence. Read the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report's recommendations and understand how you as a citizen, as an individual, as a government, as a business can make those actions real in your own lives. From supporting Indigenous entrepreneurs to ensuring that we are always supporting organizations that are doing the good work of healing that trauma. Listen to the stories. Listen to the elders, listen to the songs, listen to the knowledge keepers, listen to the stories. Teach your children. Understand that today is not a day just to wear an orange shirt. Today is a day to commit ourselves to what that orange shirt means for every single one of us. Sometimes it can feel tough to live in the world today. Sometimes it can feel like the voices of division and anger and hatred are growing so loud that we just want to shut them out. But on days when you feel discouraged, here on this land, at this confluence, in this Mokinstis, I encourage you to look up. I encourage you to look up at that big blue sky and think about all the dreams that have been made under that big blue sky, the ones fulfilled and the ones broken. And I encourage you all to dream big, to dream of a world of justice, to dream of a world of peace, to dream of a world where every one of us lucky enough to share this land can walk that path of prosperity and dignity together, to dream of reconciliation. I'm done this job in just a couple of weeks. It's been the honor of my life to be able to be in this role for this time, to try and do good for many. But the most important thing for me over these last 11 years is to play even that tiny little part on our path to true reconciliation and reconciliation. Let's make it happen.
Next up, I would like to introduce Katie Black, who is the General Manager of Community Services, to provide remarks. Katie oversees many areas, including the City of Calgary's Indigenous Relations Office. She has been a strong advocate for the creation of the city's Indigenous Relations Office, and she continues to support the important work of the IRO. A prerequisite to reconciliation is the truth. Katie is committed to city staff and leaders learning the truth of Canada's colonial history and actions that will advance reconciliation between the city and Indigenous people. Katie, please come on up.
There's a lot of steps involved in preparing to speak when we are in COVID times, but it's nothing compared to the steps on the journey of truth and reconciliation that we are sharing, and that I am so honored to be with you to speak just briefly about this afternoon. So I start by saying good afternoon to everyone who's here with us and everyone who's following along online. I am indeed honored to be with you on this meaningful and symbolic day as we hold up truth and we hold up reconciliation, and we hold up the heartache that was the Indian residential school system. The City of Calgary is deeply committed to the recommendations that you heard His Worship Mayor Naheed Nenshi speak about from the White Goose Flying report, which identifies which of the 94 calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission could be undertaken by municipalities. And as one of Calgary's largest employers, with about 15,000 employees, as you've heard, it's critical that we at the City of Calgary take a lead in educating our workforce about the atrocities that occurred for Indigenous people on the land where we now live. We know this work and our efforts will span many, many years. It's important, and we will continue to do our best. We gather today with respect for the 150,000 Indigenous children forced into residential schools, and for the countless others who've passed on or are here with us today and who still bear the scars of trauma. As I've said, the City of Calgary is deeply committed to the recommendations of the White Goose Flying report, which shines a light on 43 of the 94 calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission as actions that we can and that we will take. Those 43 calls to action in White Goose Flying are being implemented across the corporation and in a variety of ways. So I'm going to tell you just about a few that I'm proud of. First is the establishment of Calgary's Indigenous Relations Office in 2018 to support the corporation in advancing truth and reconciliation. This is the group who brought the community together to host this National Day for Truth and Reconciliation event, and the group that is such major contributors to the ongoing work across the corporation. I thank you all who are involved with the Indigenous Relations Office. Another example to reaffirm treaty relationships is that the Treaty 7 flag was erected outside of City Hall, and a display of nation flags is in council chambers because flags signal political recognition. We've made a lot of progress advancing our education of our public servants through our Human Resources Indigenous Awareness website and the Indigenous Relations Office's consistent delivery of training to various departments of the city. There's an Indigenous Peoples pilot project which established an Indigenous public art guiding circle and procured Indigenous artists as well as hiring an Indigenous curator. In December 2020, Council directed administration to work with the Indigenous community to co-create an Indigenous governance model for the city. And this is important work because it recognizes that we are operating with colonial governance models, and it supports the government-to-government co-creation of a City of Calgary Indigenous governance model that is legitimate and works for Indigenous people. The Calgary Affordable Housing Team has been working with Indigenous stakeholders to explore the city's role in addressing affordable housing issues. And finally, the most recent development has been the agreement between the city and the Indigenous Gathering Place Society to work together to establish an Indigenous gathering place where we will share, connect, heal, renew, and celebrate Indigenous cultures. This agreement was articulated in a memorandum of understanding and a pipe ceremony this past May. I share these milestones with you with equal parts of pride and humility, because as much as we have started, we are very mindful of how very, very much work is ahead for us at the city to demonstrate that we take our responsibility to heart. So, on behalf of the executive leadership team of the City of Calgary, and on behalf of my colleagues throughout the city, we thank you for keeping this important conversation going as we journey together, as we take these steps toward truth and reconciliation. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you to the team at Community Services for his support to put this event on today. I would like now to invite our next speaker, the former Grand Chief of the Assembly of First Nations and Officer of the Order of Canada. Phil Fontaine will come up to the podium and speak. Phil Fontaine has received numerous honorary doctorates from 14 of Canada's post-secondary institutions, in addition to many other awards and accolades, which could take me minutes up here to enumerate for you. So Anine, Phil, and thank you for taking the time to be with us here today.
Igwech Harold, Mayor Nenshi, dignitaries, brothers and sisters, I am very honored that I've been invited to share a few moments with all of you wonderful people. And today is a special day for our people, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit. Special day because it's about truth and reconciliation. Importantly, it's also a moment for the country so that Canada can reflect with us on our collective history. The history that hasn't been kind to us. You know, all of you here, good people, know about the suffering that our people have had to endure over time. We can spend endless hours talking about the pain and the shame, the abuse that was inflicted on thousands of innocent children in the residential school experience. We can talk about boil water advisories that are far too many. We could talk about the 30,000 children in care today, which is really 3 times the number of children that were in residential schools at the height of the residential school experience. We can talk about the homeless in the streets of the major cities in Canada. We can talk about terrible housing conditions in our communities. We can talk about overcrowding. And most recently, we can talk about the many thousands of children that died in these residential schools, the unmarked graves. These are all major challenges that are before us. These challenges are not going to disappear on their own because someone wills it. It's going to require a very deep and concerted effort on the part of all peoples to address these issues. So sometimes we might think that our lives are impossible. There are too many things wrong with the world. Society, our society, hasn't been kind to us. We can lament all of those many difficult challenges. And of course, they deserve our attention. But I'm a very hopeful guy here today. I'm extremely hopeful. Not because I watched the national news last night and the entire hour essentially was taken up on our issues. Our issues. And how often does that happen? Not often, but it's become more frequent to turn on your television set, and there you will see the anchors, reporters, and others speaking about our issues. And what that does, of course, is in the process of talking about our stories, these stories that matter to everyone. It's really an opportunity to educate and inform Canadians about us. And I can imagine that sometimes that these stories are too difficult for people to imagine that they actually happened. But they did, many, many times. So when we take this very special day for our people, this incredibly important moment for Canada, it gives us an opportunity to think deeply about the things that ought to matter to all people, not just to our people, and not something just in passing, but that it is central to our very existence on this land, the traditional lands of traditional people from every part of the country. And so, when I said earlier, I'm very hopeful. I'm hopeful because in the process of existing here together, we've reached a point where we've acquired the cunning of the white man. And this is not a derogatory term that I'm expressing to you, because when treaties were being negotiated, our leaders, our signatories to the treaties, insisted that they wanted to acquire the cunning of the white man. And that was simply about schools, about education. The red schoolhouse, or not the red schoolhouse, but the schoolhouse in every one of our communities. And that wish was fulfilled in a very dark way, with the creation of industrial schools that were followed by boarding schools, and then by residential schools. And we all know the suffering that went on in those places. But here today, when we talk about the cunning of the white man, this skill, that's been acquired in so many dramatic ways in our communities. And I am hopeful, as I said, one, because we are better educated. We are able to stand our own 2 feet. We're more involved, more engaged in the political process. We're engaged in business. There are over 30,000, and this is a conservative number, 30,000 businesses owned and managed by our people in just about every sector in the country that exists in this country. And we're very much in the minds of Canadians because they can't avoid turning their eyes away from and listening to the many stories that are emerging daily about our people. Some stories that are simply the most inspirational you will ever come across. So I'm hopeful today because we are strong and because we are resilient. The most resilient people on this land are our people. And we will continue to grow stronger and become even more important on these our lands, because finally we've emerged from darkness into light, and this dark, painful chapter that has been missing from the stories of Canada are finally here before all peoples, giving everyone finally an opportunity to learn about us, to engage with us, to embrace us, and to accept us for who we are. Peoples in our own right, peoples with unique rights. That's what gives me hope. And I trust you will join me in expressing this hope as often as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Your leadership through the negotiations of the Kelowna Accord, which was to close the standard of living gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples, but your negotiations of the Indian Residential Schools Settlement Agreement, and all that you have done for Indigenous peoples in this country is greatly appreciated. Please let's give them another hand. You're one of the first people to speak out publicly about your experiences at residential school, and we are honored to have you here with us, and we're hopeful that one day we too can be full partners in Confederation. So for our next speaker, I would like to invite Elder Carrie Moore up to the stage to share her remarks about disenfranchised mourning. Come on up, Carrie.
Tanse, hello. Ni Tanako Muksanaki, Wapanmihiginagakasqueo. My name is Carrie Moore, and that is just a name. I'm just so very honored to be here today. This is a very special day, and I know we have heard that before, but it is a day that will change everything. I woke up this morning as that sun was rising, and in the west, where my house faces, I could see the Chinook Arch coming over the mountains. And it was kind of still this morning. No wind, very still and quiet. And behind me in the east, the sun was rising. And at that very moment, as the sky opened and the sun touched the west, I felt the ancestors coming to talk to us, to be with us. Everything around in my yard, all of the trees for one moment turned orange. And so I'm looking out at all of you today, and all socially distanced. I'm seeing all of the orange shirts and all of the human beings, because it's human beings that are going to change this together. So I thank you, Clarence, for bringing us down into our spirit when we began today. And I thank the City of Calgary, the fire department. Look at what they have done behind us to show how we are coming together. I thank the Calgary Board of Education and the Catholic Board of Education and all of the people that brought us together today. But who really brought us together today? Who really brought us together today were the children. And the children have always been there. We've always known that. And the children, I truly believe, who are our ancestors now, waited to just the right moment before they came forward. It wasn't a coincidence. It was their choosing. While they were wrapped in the arms of Mother Earth, they waited for that time to come forward to help us. And all this time, and me included, all this time, when I feel that anger, that anxiousness and that sadness, I keep pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing it down. Because even though I lost people too in my family to residential schools, I felt that I couldn't do anything about it, and I carried that blame and that shame. What could I do to help them? And it took the acknowledgement of residential school many years ago by Harper to begin that process. But it was the children. It was the children who came to us to present to the world that this is who I am, this is where I am. And at that moment, we could really begin reconciliation. Because at that moment, people who really didn't believe what had happened to us, and even us as Indigenous people who kept thinking, how come no one believes me? How come I feel so terrible? At that moment, everything changed for us. We are not in a place of disenfranchised grief anymore. We are in deep grief. So deep grief must be healed before we can walk forward. That deep grief now is acknowledged. And it was not until it was acknowledged that we could really face it. So we have a wonderful journey ahead of us of grief, because we are believed and we can share and we can feel, because our emotions are creators' antibiotics. We can't heal unless we feel. And we couldn't feel because no one believed us. So I think of this journey ahead of us today and going forward, because this is just the beginning. We have a lot more ahead of us. But there's a lot more awareness. And all the people that I'm feeling around us and seeing, and the ancestors who are here with us, because they came in through that doorway. They came here today to help us understand that they're okay. And when we heal our deep grief, we heal our ancestors. And that is the journey ahead of us. So I would say to all of you who are here that we know that grief and trauma gets passed down for 7 generations. We know that. Those of you who say, what? There is a science called epigenetics that proves that, if you care. We just know that. And we end that passing down of our pain and our suffering and our anger when we recognize that this really happened and we work together. We've always known it. And now we have the opportunity to do that work and to actually let people know how we feel and to heal, to cry. Our tears are healers, so is our laughter. And we're going to do this together to heal. So we don't pass this down to our children. We are the generation that will end this. Only because we have the support of many people around us now who believe us. That was what we needed to do. So I thank all of you for beginning this journey, because we thought we began it a long time ago. I thank all of you for supporting Indigenous people. And I thank all of you for supporting each other, because you know what? We're all human beings, all of us. And human beings are just another species on Mother Earth. And we forget who we are from time to time. So let's look to the sun and the moon. Let's look to Mother Earth and the plants and the animals, because they never forget who they are. And today I was reminded of exactly that. When that sky opened, I forget that our helpers are right here on Mother Earth. And when we start realizing that we're just another, when we start to realize we're just another species on Mother Earth, that's all we are. We're here to love one another. We're here to be respectful to one another. But when I say one another, I'm talking about Mother Earth too. So I thank all of you today for being here. I thank the wonderful people that were speaking before me, who are here to make a difference, just like all of us. And boy, do I ever thank the women singers and drummers. And I thank all of you and the little children that are here too. We're going to do this together. This is just the beginning. So go ahead and cry. But make sure you laugh too. Because I'm honored to be a human being. And I'm honored to be here at this time. I'm honored because I know that I can make a difference. And so can all of us today. Because there has been an acknowledgement that is not just Canadian-wide, it's global-wide. So I thank all of you. Miigwech, hi, hi, hi. Thank you.
I'm a first-generation survivor. And every single Indigenous person that you know is a survivor. None of us got out of this unscathed. None of us. Joining me today, I would like to introduce to you on drum, Miss Pearl Whitequills. Would you put your hands together, please, and thank you. Very technical instrument right beside me, this incredible woman, Miss Deb Green, on rattle. I chose to bring this guitar today because it has stickers on it from kids. As an Indigenous person living in Mohkinstsis, I'm so grateful to be here, and I want to thank Clarence and Carrie and the world's greatest mayor, literally, for everything they had to share and say. Hi. Literally world's greatest mayor. When I was invited to be a part of this event, I sat down and I kept thinking, and the children. So I wrote a song called "And the Children." And the children, they came with eyes open wide, not knowing what to expect, not knowing who would survive. And the children, they came, forced to leave their lives behind, forced to leave their families behind, forced to kill the Indian inside. One by one, they walked in, a brand new world awaited them. Didn't see it coming that way. Down the halls they would walk, and if only those walls could talk, tell the stories of the children. The children who came. And the children, they came. Imagine they were all alone, with no one to hold them close, no one to love them as they passed on. One by one, they walked in, a brand new world awaited them. They didn't see it going that way. Down the halls they would walk, and if only those walls could talk, tell the stories of the children. And one by one they walked in, a brand new world awaited them. They didn't see it going, that way. Down the halls they would walk, and if only the walls could talk, tell the stories of the children. Creator, bless our children.
just want to thank you all for being here today, and I'm so honored to be a part of this movement. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Orange Shirt Day and where it comes from. There was a young Indigenous woman by the name of Phyllis Webster, and she was given an orange shirt by her grandmother to wear to her first day of school. But unfortunately, she was attending residential school at the time, and she wasn't able to wear the shirt because she had to wear institutionalized uniform that they wear in residential school. So Orange Shirt Day is in honor of her, in honor of all the residential school survivors and the effects that it still has on us today, and all of you children and everyone out there. So thank you again for being here, and I'm honored to be USA Ambassador. I'm honored to be a jingle dress dancer and to represent for the Indigenous community. Hi, hi.
Hey everyone, I'm Fallon Manywoons. My traditional name is Holy White Buffalo Woman, and I'm from the Tsuut'ina Nation. I am the granddaughter of two survivors of the 60s scoop, Indian hospitals, and the residential school system. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and speak about the horrific things that both my grandparents went through, but I will say this: if it wasn't for their strength and courage and their willingness to fight, I wouldn't be up here representing Treaty 7 and any First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Today is a day about truth and reconciliation, and we are here to educate. And with people wanting to learn our history, our culture, and who we are, and forgetting the stereotypes, that's when we can finally move forward and continue to build a strong relationship with one another.
Still on My City Speaks to Me, the Calgary edition. I'm here with David Duckworth, the City of Calgary manager. So David, how are you today?
I'm great, Henry.
So tell our audience, what are your thoughts on the Truth and Reconciliation ceremony today?
You know, it's just an incredible day today. I'm just so proud of my colleagues at the City of Calgary to be able to host this and put this event on for all of us and all of the Calgarians to really take a moment, a day to celebrate, to learn and grow and really understand some of the atrocities that have occurred in Canada in the past with our Indigenous people. I'm just very proud of my team for what they did today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for hanging out with me on this episode of My City Speaks to Me, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. As always, I invite you to leave a comment on my page to know that you stopped by, and support our work by sharing this video in your social media. Until I come your way again with more exciting episodes from around Canada on My City Speaks to Me. Like I do it on this show, don't move a muscle, stretch. Every child and every life matters.
In a spirit of love and helping each other. Hey, 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 oh, hey, 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 oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, 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 oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, hey, oh, hey, oh, Exito Expocaxa, Alex Kono Expocaxa, Maut Kaya, Oh, क्या pesticide, pesticide. Ah, hey, hey, hey. Ah, yeah, yeah. Oh, hey, hey, hey. Ah, hey, oh, hey, hey, hey. Ah, hey, oh, hey, hey, hey.